Hey, Nation, Harry here, and I'm with my good friends at ESET. In fact, it's been too long since I've chatted with them. Community members are remembered. Leonard DiMichele recently joined ESET a few months ago, and that actually led to some connections with Tony Anscombe. How you doing, Tony?
I'm good, Harry, and it's great to be here on SMB Nation.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. And it's been too long. So you recently did a survey with over 1,200 participants. First of all, I do a little bit of surveying. That's a big number in this day and age in SMB. That congratulations. That's that takes some work to get that many responses.
It certainly does, and it's important that you have enough data to make the survey meaningful, as you well know.
Yeah. And what was the let's talk at the 10,000 foot level. What was the survey about?
Well, if I had to term it in one sentence, Harry, what I'd turn and say is what we wanted to understand was the attitude towards cybersecurity for small and medium businesses. And when I say attitude of, whether that's budget, what they think is their current risk, what they're actually putting in place, etc. So kind of that overarching umbrella of how they feel about cybersecurity.
Yeah, interesting. And one of the things that stood out for me was, and again, my listeners are going to fondly recall my career at Microsoft with Small Business Server. Right behind me, we were pioneering. I mean, that's the 2003 release. And we had some workspace UI interfaces, and it's basically the RDP protocol, right? And I'll never forget port 3389, man. I mean, that was open. And your survey double-clicked into that I believe it was nearly 3/4 of the respondents identified RDP as a security issue. Let's talk about that. Expand on that.
Well, so as you said, a big chunk so said they viewed RDP as a risk, and the problem is RDP has become very prevalent over the last 2 or 3 years, because obviously, and not wishing to harp on about pandemics and remote access and working from home, because I think we've all heard way too much about that. But if we look at the cybercrime, statistical numbers behind the increase in RDP attacks, from the start of the pandemic to the end of 2021, we saw an 894% increase in brute force attacks against RDP servers. Now, to put that into numbers, that was, I think it's 123 billion attacks, or well over 100 billion attacks in the first 4 months of this year. And then it kind of tails off, and it tailed off for a number of reasons. Microsoft put some protections in there. I think people went back to the office, and there's a lot of reasons why that tailed off. But it's clear that the SMB has understood that this is something that could be attacked, and understand that there's a risk in there. What was shocking was 77% of those SMBs turned and said, we're going to continue to use RDP. Despite knowing that there's a overarching security risk with it. And to add to that, and I think even more shocking, and this is something, I challenge every MSP and reseller out there to go fix, by the way, 50% of the 77% that said they're going to continue to use it don't use multi-factor authentication to secure it. And this is an easy win.
Yeah, no kidding. What's your job at ESET? What's a week in the life of Tony like?
Hectic. So I'm the chief security evangelist. I actually work for our HQ office out of Slovakia, but I'm based here in the US.
Okay.
And I speak to lots of people like you, Harry, and talk on radio and TV as well. But I also have what I define as a day job. I represent ESET to some of the major technology companies such as Google and Microsoft, etc. And as you'd expect, we have very significant technology relationships with people like that. I also get involved with some of our relationships with people like CISA, so the federal government, for security intelligence and such like as well. So I have what I think is kind of the dream job. because I go off, talk to technology companies, governments. I go off to lots of events and speak. So yeah, I love my job.
Yeah, no, I get it. And it's almost like you're an evangelist, or maybe that's an outdated term. I mean, I know you do more than evangelize the ESET solution set. Let's talk about events. Would you find yourself? We're recording this the week after Thanksgiving, and it'll be posted up later. But would you find yourself at the AWS reInvent conference that's occurring this week in Las Vegas, or is that a bridge too far for your audience? That's not quite the right audience.
That may be a bridge too far. But however, saying that, it all depends. So I never talk about our products. Now, if you want to talk about one of our products, go talk to a salesperson, a product manager, or a sales engineer. Yeah, there's lots of people in our company that can talk to you about our products. I always talk about the industry, the risk, policy as well. Policy is changing, as we know, continually.
Yeah.
So it's not inconceivable that I might end up on a panel at something like that event. Let's give you an example of some recent events I've been at. Security Leaders Exchange, which was held down in Florida. That's a super interesting event because it's one-to-one with CISOs of major companies, enterprise based. But then if I go to the other end of and pick off, I recently presented at Sector in Toronto, which is a technical conference about the threat landscape, et cetera, et cetera. So it's at both ends of the high level and down into the weeds as well of the technology as well. But like I say, I tend not to get involved in our product and talk purely about cybersecurity, the trends in it, the policy, what we're seeing, and what's important for the people on the ground in these enterprises trying to protect themselves.
Yeah, and I applaud that. All too often on my podcast and then just life in general, you've seen it at events. You get a subject matter expert up on stage and they start talking product and the audience is like, oh my God, a product pitch, so it sounds like you're on the right side of the equation, that you're educating. You know what I'm trying to say?
I know exactly what you're trying to say, Harry. So let me give you a piece of my career history here. I was a network manager back in the 90s. And I worked for a number of organizations, and I hated it when people came into my office and did that.
Yeah.
So I just vowed not to do it to other people.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I was known for walking a few people out of my office. So I'm probably not I'm not a very patient person with things like that.
Well, that's all right. Well, as I told you in our rehearsal, I'm now based in Austin, Texas, after a career in Seattle. But that's not a Texas accent that you have. UK, British?
I'm from the UK, from Great Britain, and moved out to the US back in 2011. So somewhat acclimatized.
There you go. Well, we played you hard the other day in the World Cup, and hopefully, fingers crossed, hopefully both Wales and the US can advance. Who knows? But it's been fun.
Well, let's be clear. We're recording this the day before the next game. I'm hoping England will beat Wales tomorrow, purely to cement our elevation into the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's do this, Tony. Let's get you back. In 2023, let's maybe check in with you at mid-year, see what's new, see how you're doing, okay? And we'll get you back.
That sounds great. Can I just add something about our survey, Harry, that I feel is really important? One of the things that was missing in that SMB sector, if you look at the data, was companies aren't running a cybersecurity audit frequently enough. So over half didn't run a cybersecurity audit in the last 12 months. And to me, this is, whether you're an MSP, a reseller, whether you're an end user listening to this, if you're in the channel and you've got customers, this is fundamental. If you don't understand what you need to protect, then your protection is going to be lagging behind. So go run this at least once a year at least once a year and make sure cyber resilience plans are updated and all those policies and processes are in place, because it's so important, because you don't want to be on the back foot should you end up with a cyber incident.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you for that. I always liken that to, and I'll end on this. And again, I tend to go back way too far into the past to make a point with analogies, but a survey, a site survey, an audit, stuff like that is akin to the example I used in yesteryear about providing training on site for your customers to use the actual products. Call it Microsoft Office or whatever. But Tony, what we found and is that it could be an incremental 10% of your revenue with that client, right? If you just looked for additional services you could provide and then increase their productivity. Now, I know it's a loose analogy, but you get the point.
I absolutely get the point. I think it's low-hanging fruit for the channel to go provide these services. The other thing I'd be looking to add, if I was running an MSP, I think I'd be trying to take off some of the bureaucracy burden that's coming in cyber incident disclosures and things like that, and take some of that away from the customer as well. Yeah, I think there's a lot of services you can add on around the cybersecurity sector that would be really useful.
All right. Well, hey, let me be the first to offer happy holidays to you. Like I say, we'll check in about mid-year, see what's new, what's going on in the landscape. Thank you, Tony.
I look forward to it, Harry. Thank you.